Okay, people, we are going to do a bit of how to clean your airbrush. I'll talk a bit about what I have out in front of me here. If you notice, there's a jam jar here. Now, this is what I put my airbrushes in when I'm getting ready to give them a good clean, or after a gig. Maybe I've got 2 gigs, you know, kind of back to back, one the day after the other. And this works well because you don't want, this has got 99% alcohol in it because I was doing airbrush tattoos with Endura or any kind of ink-based product rather than hybrid. So you want, well, hybrid as well, yeah, I used 99%. You put it in there, but definitely not anything water-based. So if you look, this has been sitting in here for about a day now, but there's like the nozzles there, and originally the little level of alcohol, you want to come up past the little level of this. So you put it in the jar, it's like that, and that allows the alcohol not to get into this portion of your airbrush where there's a lot of sealing and you don't really want to have a lot of liquid and stuff getting in there at all because it'll affect the performance of your airbrush. So there we go, that's what I do. And this jam jar is one that's used for canning, and I found it to be just the perfect size for this because it holds the brushes upright, and it takes 8, which for me is a full set. So I kind of love these jars. Alcohol swabs. This is my 99% alcohol. I do take it on gigs and it looks like this on the gigs. I don't pretty up the bottle. 99% is a hazard. You want to keep it in the correct container. You don't want kids mucking around with it or anything. You want it to look chemical. You want the warnings on it. I put a spray top on it, and the spray top really does quite a straight line. If you can see it, it's kind of like a straight line thing. It's not one of these fan open sprays, it's one that comes out quite straight. It does have the other side on it does have more of a fan kind of opening actually. Right, I've also put down a dark towel here, and you can see pieces of your airbrush, you know, they stand out really nice and bright against that black toweling, and it also stops things rolling away. You may think that you've got good fingers and that little pieces won't roll away, but believe me, when you get down to little nozzles and things will roll. I've lube, of which you only use small amounts, a little dental pick thing, which I find often they're softer than ones for the airbrushes, and this is a little spanner that comes with your Iwata airbrush, which fits nicely here for taking things off. You don't ever want to over tighten things, just kind of like finger tight, and that's that. I've got some wipes here. I've got a little bit of acetone. I have some acetone, I have some cotton buds, and I have a little measuring cup here that I might use just to kind of see how it goes. And this is blue shop towel. You get them in your DIY stores. It's called blue shop towels here in the US. I'm sure there'll be some kind of equivalent there. But basically this stuff doesn't break down to fluff. It doesn't break down to lint, so it's very handy. And I also have my gloves, which I will use because I have, apart from that it's bad for my nails, I've managed to just stab my finger and the alcohol will sting, so I don't really want to go down there. And I've got this is my little airbrush holder for 2 things, and I have this thing as well, which I'm probably not going to play with these airbrushes right now, but it's a brush holder. I got this one in a gift from Janice Hooks, but I've seen you can get cheap ones on eBay or Amazon, have them, and they're just great because you can just kind of sit your airbrushes on them and they're very stable. I've never had problems on a gig with anything falling out of that, and I do like it if I'm swapping around brushes and things. It holds gravity brushes in particular very nicely, and I quite like it for when I'm cleaning, and you can stick random handles and stuff in there. So that's that. Thank you. Okay, so I will pop my gloves on and I will start to dismantle an airbrush. Probably a lot of you have seen this before, but everybody kind of does things in their own different way a little bit. So maybe you'll pick up some tips, those of you who've done this a million times. But those of you who are kind of wary about airbrush, it's kind of nice to be able to see what's inside, and to actually see it getting broken down, and it's not that scary. So please note, I am not doing this at the edge of the table, because I have learned over time that that's a bad thing. I am doing this in a little bit so that if anything does fall off, I can stop it from rolling away. So here we go. Now you see there's like some gold in there, but with this being soaked, it will make this job a lot easier, an awful lot easier. So here's the cone. Now watch when you do this. Take off your back handle. This is the bit that I always lose. This is called your chuck nut, and this screws on here, but as you can see with it coming out, this whole thing is sliding around. So this nut, its job is to secure your needle. So it compresses these. I don't know if you can see, there's like a little screw fitting there. So this, once that is on and tight, you can't move that without affecting your trigger. So it allows your trigger to control how your needle moves. And I'm going to take that off carefully, so carefully. So this is like a little plastic container I have, which I kind of love. You get your own little pots, so anything small, it's very unlikely I have to clean that, so I'm just going to put it in there. Sometimes I use these, or little glass baby food jars, anything kind of like that, and you can put 99% alcohol in those, and give things a good soak with that if you want to. So then I'm going to take out my needle carefully, because they are sharp, and you will have seen that the cone fell off. Yay! Because these airbrushes have been sitting for a little while. So having the towel meant it didn't go far. You can imagine that if that rolls off your table, it's going to make a mess. So let's screw this. Now your needle is what holds your trigger in place, so be aware of that. So I'm just going to have a look and see how this is doing. I don't always take this out when I clean, because the way that I have things, you know, keeping them upright, it means that that section of my airbrush is not being soaked in alcohol and paint. So it just seems to stay better than the people who chuck it all in a wanna. The best policy is not to let paint get in there at all. So these are just 70% swabs, so I'm just giving that a quick little wipe and having a look at it, seeing what's on there. Not a lot. There we go. And then the trigger, sometimes you get a little bit of paint build up in there, so kind of have a look at it and a look underneath. It's good to have a little bit of pride in your airbrush. Keep these things nice, and wipe that down. With the iwatas, you can buy parts separate, which is kind of nice. So my triggers for the top, needle, those things go along there. All good. Right, now I'm just going to take my shop towel, and I just kind of fold up there, ready to take some alcohol, and I'm just going to spray that in there and have a look at what comes out, and look down inside, be observant, and just see what's going on in there. Let's have a look. Looks pretty clean. And I like these because they're designed for teeth. They're pretty flexible. And I feel they're less likely to scratch and score than some of the things. So you see, like, there's a bit that's coming out of there. So spray down in there again. And at the end of a gig, it is nice to be able to just take your airbrush at the end of a gig, take your airbrush, look down in there, and just spray some of your 99% in there. And then the other thing that I do is I loosen the chuck nut carefully, pointing the needle upwards because I do not want the chuck nut to come off. And I'll pull the needle back a little bit so that it's not touching that cone at the front. So just pull it back a little. And you can tell when it's pulled away as well, because you get a little blob coming out then because it's now no longer locked. And the point of that is that your needle is not going to wind up kind of glued to the cone with paint, because you don't want to damage that part of your airbrush. Not by any means. So that's it, because you can imagine if you have this full of paint, this cone piece, and then that right up tight against it, the whole thing can set, and it just makes your job so much harder for cleaning. Just going to pop my cone in there so I don't lose it. Right, so I'm just going to pull this across here and see how that feels. If you feel a kind of scratch, like notice I'm always pulling it and kind of rolling it, don't go the other way because you'll stab yourself. If you feel it kind of catching, you'll know that you've got a problem. But that one feels just fine. It's that. And then even though it feels fine, you're going to wipe that down again, always working towards the point so you don't stab yourself. There we go. And you again have a look, see, nice and clean. Here we go. Alright, so we can start thinking about putting this back together. It's not actually all that bad. Oh, I know where there was some gold on this bit. This thing's called the crown, and it's got like some, I must have been using gold here, and there's gold in there, so I'm just taking a cotton bud, doing that. There we go. You can see how much has come off of there. There you are. And I could dry that off, although the alcohol does dry pretty quickly, and then pop that back in there. So that looks good to me. So let's check how the cone is. So you've got your 99% in here, so you can use this. So again, have your lighter stuff there so you can see what's going on. And I'm just kind of giving that a wee bit of a clean with that. And again, wiping it. I can see there's a little bit of gold coming out, not all that much though. Just kind of firing and spraying into there. There we go. Yeah. Check it again. That's all looking good. Okay, good stuff. So we have this piece, and where's the other bit of this? Yep. So this comes into another bit that I am prone to losing. Is there is a spring in here, so keep an eye on that. If you take that apart, if it gets grubby, you don't want to lose the spring. So this little thing here, you want to get that correctly in the hole. And a lot of people struggle with this. But I've found that if you tilt your airbrush, you can do it. And then you put it like back up like that. So what's happening there is gravity is just making that little flat piece fall into place so nicely. And you don't want it all the way in because you still have to get this. Now watch with your trigger, there's a little curve on there, and you want the little curve to go to the back so that when you're pulling back, you're pulling onto the curve. So pull that, got it in there, and then you just want to kind of drop it. You sort of feel it kind of falling in there. Of course, on camera it doesn't want to cooperate. Kind of sitting at an angle here. Yeah, there you go. So you can feel it's in the right place because it bounces. And then when you let that thing go, that's it, like that. Just tighten it up. Screw that in. And then take your needle. I put my needle in at this point because I don't want the trigger to fall out again. So I'm not going to push it there because I'd want to protect the point of my needle. So I'm pulling it back to there. And then that's when I need that lovely little chuck nut. There you go. And you can see that is moving nicely. It's feeling good. Now, I don't do it every time when I clean my airbrush, but I haven't done this in a while. I'm just going to put a little bit of lube, just like one drop in the back here. You don't want to go sticking anything that's not recommended down there because you can end up making a heck of a mess. So you don't want to do that. And then a little bit along here on the chuck nut. And you don't have to cover the whole thing, just one little drop. And then when it wound on, that'll pull it through all the threads. So there you go. Cap back on there. Now, this is what's called kind of self-sealing or something, maybe a more technical term for it, way of getting a cone. Now this is like the best, well, one of the best reasons for getting any water, eclipse. They do also make a lovely little siphon. And the difference with the siphon really is, no, gravity. This is a siphon. Gravity airbrush, siphon airbrush. Gravity airbrush uses gravity to help allow the paint to drop down and then go out. Now that allows you to work at much lower pressures. So this kind of airbrush I like for doing, you know, fine art pieces. But also when you're working on the face, because you can, you know, you need to have your lowest pressure when you're working around on a face. So if you do airbrush face painting and things, it's a nice choice. Also allows you to have more control. So sometimes I'll use this airbrush in particular, and you see like it's got a different kind of handle on it. So this screw changes how far back the trigger can go. So if I put it forward, that trigger cannot move. If I unwind it a little bit, you can pull your trigger back. You can buy these handle pieces separately. This, I don't think this airbrush came with this handle. I think it just came with a regular one. And I took this off of a higher grade airbrush and put it onto this one because I like it. So you see now I've pulled it back, and you can pull your trigger much further back. And the reason that I like it, putting this handle on, is that if you're at a gig and you're working away for 4-6 hours sometimes, you want to make it easier on your hands so you're not cramping. So particularly for black, I like to have this handle, wind it forward a little bit. So your trigger controls how much paint is going to be able to come out, because it pulls your needle back, increases the paint volume. So if it's fixed there. It allows your finger to hold back against something hard rather than just sort of hovering in space. So you can have a consistent low amount of paint. So you can do delicate, lighter effects, which is great. So more kind of like shadowing and shading and things like that. And you can see it on this one. There's my siphon there with that on. And I'll know that that is my black airbrush at the gig. And I'll also have, like, you know, my nicest, smoothest running airbrush, or like, I'll make sure that the black has absolutely no problems at all, to the airbrush that I have to be surest of. So that's that with that handle on. And as I said, you can buy them separately, but pieces of iwatas, you can switch them around to an amazing extent. You can also change your needles and things. So I think like the Eclipse comes with a 3.5 set, but you can up it to 5, like a 0.5, like a larger needle size. You have to take the whole needle cone and these pieces and change them all to a 5, but it allows you to push thicker mediums through your Eclipse Gravity, which can be great, particularly for water-based paint and white and everything. White is, you know, it's just always got the one that's most pigment. Anyway, back to this. So cone, self-seating, that's the word. So it just sits in there, and then this goes on top of it. That just screws on, and again, I don't want it to be crazy tight. I'm looking at that, it looks like there's a wee bit of residue on the outside, so just kind of wipe that down with my shop towels. There you go. And then put the crown on top. And the job for the crown is to, well, I can show you when this is loosened off yet again. You push that forward. Now you can see that the needle is coming right forward. Absolutely forward. Now just have it, don't push it. You want it to just kind of gently kiss the front of the cone inside. You don't want it to be sort of jammed up tight against it, you know, because you don't want too much pressure going on. So just, you know, just kissing it gently. So if you're on a job and you're working away and you don't have this on, you can run the risk of permanently tattooing somebody. So you don't want to do that. I mean, it's fine if you're doing t-shirts or, you know, with acrylic paint. But when working on people, do your best to keep your crown on unless you are 100% positive of the environment around you. Like, you know, maybe like it's a competition type situation and you're in a closed area. But doing tattoos on kids and stuff, nah. For t-shirts or anytime using acrylic paint, you'll find you get a bit of build up going on here, and that's why people like to take the crown off, because they will wipe this almost continually when they're working. You'll notice painters who are have started off as airbrush t-shirt artists still have that habit. It's kind of like an itch, you know, you keep wiping it and wiping it and wiping it. So I think there's quite a few well-known artists who are doing body art, and you're like, wipe, wipe, wipe. And it's, a lot of it is habit. A lot of it is habit for what they're using. The products are different. But anyway, that's the iwata. I think if you use badgers, the needles kind of stick out at the front, and you have to have like a rubber cap to put on when you're packing them away. And then when you're done, remember, a gig, loosen your chuck nut and pull your needle back, or for any storage. But I am away to use this one and test that I've done a good job cleaning it. So I want it forward. And there we go. Now, let's have a look. I've got one here that is, oh God, these are like, this bag of airbrushes. This is like pre-COVID. Yeah, PC. So let's have a quick look at what's in here. These have not been soaked. So I'm just going to loosen that. Now, handle off, undo the chuck nut. Can I even move that needle? Yes, I can, but only kind of just. Oh, it feels, you can feel it, that it is really like grungy and horrible in there. It's bad. It's like shameful. So I'm going to pull the needle back so I can move this, because you don't want to try and move this when the needle's still inside. So you just kind of wiggle it a bit till it loosens. All right, and I'm going to pop that in there. Well, actually, I'm going to spray it. This is kind of when you play guess the colour. Use my little dental pick. Ugh. Right, so that just sits in there so I don't lose it again. And let's see. Doesn't look too bad actually, but I can feel it on the needle that it's really grimy. So if you see what I'm doing here is I'm not pulling my needle back all the way through the airbrush, because what that's going to do is pull all the rubbish into this area, which, you know, we want to keep that area really clean, because then you'll have far fewer problems with your airbrushes. That's why I was, you know, the jam jar and keeping things upright. So loosen the chuck nut off, push, and pull that out. Ugh. I'm just going to roll that around, and there's not like masses on it, but I can see, yeah, it's certainly enough for me to feel it when I'm working. So that's towel's still got that on it. Just rotate, 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 rotate. You can get gadgets which will help you make minor repairs to the point of your needle if it's got a little bit of damage, and they're great things. They've saved me a lot of money. It's called Sharpenair. It's like a little block, and you put the needle in 3 different holes, one after the other, and it kind of regrinds your needle to where it was. There we go. I think that's better. There's some on the handle. Right. Just like things to look clean as well. Oh yeah, I see it was purple. What was I doing that was purple? Can't remember. It was maybe some colour theme. Don't be afraid of mixing your paint colours. Making up little bottles of them, you know, particularly for sports teams and things. Yeah, it's what for. It's for the Lakers. Some little chocolate is in there. So I was doing a basketball themed bar mitzvah, and I needed purple for one of the team colours and mixed it up. Purple I find is just one of those colours that's better mixed than bought. Seems to come out more opaque. I have a little bit of dog fluff there. I have a dog. Right, there we go. Doing that again. Oops. I want to keep it there. I just lean it up against my jar. But I think the bit that I want to show you is to take the cone. We have the needle here. So you can, if you are not sure on how clean your airbrush is, of that in there. Always use the correct solvent for the paint that you're using. Like I'm using 99% just now. But obviously do not use that with water-based, and also do not use water with alcohol-based paint, because you'll just make like glue. It'll just be horrible. And you don't want to use the official airbrush cleaner more than absolutely necessary. That's for when you've made glue, you want to use airbrush cleaner. Try to avoid using that because it is very strong, and you don't want to, you know, you want your airbrush to last years. You don't want to subject it to really harsh cleaners. So if you see I took a little bit of the fibers off of the cotton bud and wrapped them around the tip of the needle, you then dip that in there, in the alcohol, put it in. Sometimes, you know, if I'm cleaning over from acrylic paint to alcohol-based paint, like say I did a t-shirt gig and now I'm doing tattoos and I want it to be really, really, really clean, I will use acetone and do this bit with that. And because it's wet when it goes in, it comes out fine. Now sometimes you can have that done and it comes out black and you've got to do like maybe 3 tries with it to get it all out of there, but it really loosens it up. So that is feeling much, much, much better now. Still a little bit of marking on there, so I'll maybe use a swab on it just because a little bit of pressure might help. Obviously, once you're all done, what you want to do is to hook it up to an air source and check it by running 99% same solvent, run that through your airbrush and check that it is running fine. Still feels a little bit tight, but I think that's okay. So that, put on the glorious chuck nut before I, oh, now what I've done wrong there is I put the needle in, which means that I won't get the trigger in. So take the needle out. Again, I'm looking for the little curve there, holding it upright, pulling that back, dropping this into there. And again, you can feel it give when you put it in, then just let that go, pings against it, tighten it up. Some airbrushes, some iwatas, like the Revolution, and some of the other ones which come in the higher grade ones, they have a different mechanism for the cone, which is this piece at the front, and it's not self-seating. It's a smaller piece. Actually, maybe I can show you. I think there's one here. This is HPC. So pull that off. Now you see that teeny weeny little bit there, like that teeny weeny little thing right on the very tip. It's like a tiny little thing. I don't know if you can even make it out in there. That is your cone. So that teeny weeny little piece does the job of this. And you have to put it in with a very small spanner, which it comes with it, and put it on. This type of cone, you do not want to leave this like I did with those other eclipses, like that bag of airbrushes. You want to be really careful about keeping it nice and clean and flushing it through and things, because if you get stuff in here and you have to take that off and get in there, it's a mess. So you don't want to do that at all. So I'll pop this one over here. Here we go. I'll put the cone on this one back here. And put this little mechanism on the top there. and just slide it on. You can probably hear my dogs in the background a little bit there. I think somebody's hoping he's going out. So needle, again's there again. I'm going to check this one too and put that on. My handle is here. Okay, so how the airbrush works is that it sucks air up here. So how the airbrush works, this is called a double action airbrush. The first part is that it takes the air up here, and when you press the trigger down, this opens up this little valve and the air will come out here. You can have just air when the trigger is forward. When you pull the trigger back, what happens is it moves the needle, and that allows the air to go forward and to suck the paint up. You have a little bottle here of paint, and the paint is sucked up, mixed in this area, and comes out as a spray, kind of like, you know, wide. So the bigger the hole, the wider the spray, and the more paint volume that come out. Doesn't always mean like this, doesn't always mean that it gets wider, but you can have more paint coming out. All the airbrushes are a little bit different, so that's kind of what you want. There we are, there's a little bit of something on that one. So yeah, if you just kind of keep them nice. You see, this one has also got a thing on the end of it from the gig. I was wondering where all my quick connects were. Turns out they're still attached. This, which clips onto my hose. There's another end to that thing. This one's a MAC valve, and this screws onto the hose. This bit you pull down and it kind of pops on there, kind of clicks on. She doesn't. That one doesn't want to do it at the moment. But yeah, so the idea is you have this piece attached onto your hose, and then you have that. These are handy, particularly if you're using CO2, because it seals, it's self-sealing. So when this isn't in it, you don't have an open hose that's continuing to keep on spraying out CO2, or just to have your compressor running, you know, if you're doing that. So you can have one hose and have all your airbrushes on these and just pop them on and off, which is quite a nice way of working, and that might well end up being how I work today. But anyway, there's a little bit about brush cleaning, and a little bit of me rambling, and there we go. All right, thank you.